Welcome and thanks for joining us today for our September Lunch and Learn. I'm glad you could be here. It's fall migration. I hope everybody's getting out to enjoy it. We are excited to be focusing on broadwing migration, which is fitting for today. This is a species that's making its way past a lot of hawk watches right now, especially in the east. We're still waiting for our big push at our local New Hampshire site, Packmanadnock, but I'm glad that other sites are having some great days. I am Julie Brown. I'm the Raptor Migration and Programs Director at HMANA. We are excited to welcome Diego Gallego Garcia, PhD candidate at the Argentinian Scientific and Technical Research Council and member of the Center for the Study and Conservation of Birds of Prey in Argentina. Diego presented to us during a lunch and learn back in May 2022, I think. And he was speaking about the endangered Chaco eagle. So we're excited to hear about broadwings and what he's learned today. I'm going to be facilitating things with Phil Brown. He's the Director of Bird Conservation at the Harris Center. And this event is being co-sponsored today by HMANA and the Harris Center for Conservation Education. So for those of you who are maybe new to HMANA, we are a nonprofit that provides support to the raptor migration monitoring network across all the Americas. And we promote education and conservation of migratory raptors. We archive migration count data in hawkcount.org, which is our online repository. And we are an active partner in the Raptor Population Index. That's a program that produces conservation assessments and population trend analyses derived from those migration counts. And we turned 50 this year. So we are going to have a great conference at the end of the year. I'll mention that after Diego's talk. But I will let Phil jump in, introduce himself, and a little bit about the Harris Center.
Thank you, Julie. As Julie said, I'm Phil Brown, and here today representing the Harris Center for Conservation Education. We are, for those who are not familiar with the Harris Center, as this is a partner event, so probably a lot of you are not from this area. We are an environmental education and research organization based in southwestern New Hampshire. We're also a land trust, and we've helped protect 26,000 acres of land of important habitats and high elevation summits, lake shores, important habitat for broad-winged hawks in particular, as we've learned. This is why we're so interested in this particular program and Diego's work. In 2021, the Harris Center joined in on a long-term research project that is Hawk Mountains Project on the broad-winged hawk. So we joined in this study, and for 4 years now, we've been monitoring nesting broad-winged hawks around the region. And we realized there's a pretty good population of them around the Harris Center's protected land base. So yeah, we're excited to learn the results of the breeding home ranges that Diego is going to share with us today. I encourage you all to ask questions throughout the talk. I'll be helping facilitate those. So put those in the chat, please. In particular, going back to the broad-winged hawk, we have 5 birds from the Harris Center study area that are in Diego's research here. So yeah, very excited personally to learn more about this as well. I just wanted to mention a couple of events for those who are in the Southwest New Hampshire area that are upcoming. Just this weekend on Saturday, September 21st, there is a book launch based at the Harris Center in Hancock. The Stokes Guide to Finches of the United States and Canada is being launched, and there'll be a book signing by Lillian Stokes and Matthew Young. So that's an exciting one. I hope you can all come out to that. There's also a lot of other programs, and I'll just put in a link to the events that we run, so you can join some of those if you're close in person. And we also do have quite a few events throughout the year that are Zoom based too. So thanks to HMANA for leading the Lunch and Learn, and thank you for allowing us to be a co-sponsor today. All right. With that, I'm going to introduce Diego Gallego Garcia is a Spanish biologist with a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a Master's in Zoology. And he's devoted his research career to wildlife biology, lately focusing on the ecology and conservation of raptors in the Americas. His PhD thesis deals with the movement, ecology, and dispersal behavior of the endangered Chaco eagle during its first years of life. As part of a recent traineeship at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, Diego participated in the Broad-winged hawk project and published novel data on the breeding home ranges of this elusive forest bird. So Diego, welcome, and feel free to take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Julie, for the introduction. First, I want to make sure if you hear me well, the screen is watchable for everybody. Okay. Well, as Phil said, I'm from Spain. I now live in Argentina since 2016, and I'm gonna tell you about broadwings. Some people may think, so why is this guy going to give us a talk on broadwings? I never saw a broadwing until I arrived at Hawk Mountain Sanctuary back in 2022 when I was a spring conservation trainee. So I have lots of people to thank for all this research that has been made with their help. So the broadwing hawk, I will say that we are unveiling the breeding home ranges of this enigmatic species. So just to start with something, I know that maybe most of you may be familiarized with broadwing hawks, but maybe the word breeding home range is something very strange, no? What does that mean? So when we have a map like this, can you imagine a bird or an animal that we have marked with a satellite transmitter, and we have this location data, and we want to establish a territory to conserve the species. So then we have this home range. Home range is like our house, a place where we develop our daily activities. In the case of birds, they could be foraging, hunting, whatever. But what happens when this area encompasses the places where they breed, no? The nest, the places where they breed their young, etc. Then we have what is called the breeding home range. And this is even more important because it is a focus place where birds have to be conserved, because these places give us a lot of information on the habitat quality, on human impact, or maybe potential competitors that these species could have. And this, of course, has strong implications for conservation of species, even if they are not birds at all. So now the main character of this film, the broadwing hawk, Buteo platypterus, I won't say many things on the appearance of this bird. I know that lots of you are well into bird watching and probably at hawk watch sites. So what I'm going to tell you probably is obvious, but just in case you do not, you are new in this, I will say that it's a quite small, stocky raptor with this Buteo shape with broad wings, these broad black and white trail bands in the adult form, at least, and a dark trailing edge of those wings that you see at the back. It has a characteristic whistle made by 2 syllables. Let's see if you can hear it. That's like the sound that we hear in the field when we want to search for this elusive raptor. So about the distribution, where does this animal live? It is from the near Arctic, at least when it's breeding. So during the summer, spring and summer, it will stay on the red part that you see in that map. That's like southern Canada, eastern, northeastern United States. And that's more or less between April and July. It's quite variable. We will talk about this. Then after breeding, it starts its migration to the southern grounds. You will see that from August to December, there is like a huge bottleneck there in Central America, where there are some hogwatch sites where they gather by millions, like thousands of hundreds of thousands and even millions, to go to the wintering grounds in Central and South America, although there are some individuals that may stay in southern Mexico, and they stay there overwintering until they have to turn back north from February to May to complete the cycle and start again the breeding season in April of the next year. So you can imagine the importance of this talk, not only for this species in particular. Migratory species give us a lot of clues on climate change, lots of clues on species conservation, human impact, and so on. So talking about the conservation status of this animal, according to the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, this bird is globally less concerned, which means it is doing okay, numbers are good, it's not showing declines in the global trend, or at least that is what it seems. This is a map of the raptor population index, a collaborative work between lots of watch sites of North America, and it's giving us the trends of the populations of these broadwings. Based on what? Based on the number of individuals that are passing through the watch sites. We have in green those places where broadwings are increasing in the numbers in the last 10 years, whereas you have in the eastern part of North America, particularly in the northeast, and if we have to focus on one place, it will be like Pennsylvania, those states, we have a decline which is continuous and maintained of a 5%, a reduction of 5% of the numbers of broadwing hawks passing through these watch sites. And even worse, it has been studied that the breeding grounds of this species, particularly in Pennsylvania state, have decreased by 16%. So there is something that is happening to this bird that we don't know. So back to this map that you will see this map quite often during this talk. What do we know about this bird? We know lots of things on migration, thanks to some research that has been done in the last years, particularly by people of Hawk Mountain Sanctuary in collaboration with others. We know, for example, that age and origin of the birds are driving the distances that they migrate. For example, Canada birds would travel farther or travel more distances during migration than those departing from, for example, Pennsylvania. The same with age. There are lots of differences regarding the onset of migration, the number of stopovers during their migration. A stopover will be like a place to rest during the migration continuum. So we have kind of a lot of information on this issue. What about the breeding season? There was a paper by a friend of mine, Sandra Cuadros. She was doing also the same as me, the Spring Conservation Traineeship 2021, and she, with the help of people from Hawk Mountain, for the first time unveiled where they stay, where they go, how big are the areas where they roam when they are in winter. No? And one of the conclusions that they came across was that most of the overwintering areas were linked to places with a lot of forest degradation, fires, and even illegal mining places. So again, things that we have to take into account from science to conservation. And here I can show a video by Esther Vallejo in Colombia. That's what I was talking about before. That's what they call a cattle. I don't know how many broadwings at the same time migrating. This is spectacular, and this occurs because there is a bottleneck that you will see in the map of the right side. There is like a common passage for all birds that go to South America when they head to winter. And then you have those wintering grounds in Suriname, Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia. So they go far, far south, reaching distances of more than 8,000 kilometers and even more. There have been birds tracked for 10,000 kilometers in migration. So what do we know about the breeding season? Let's head to the point of this talk. There was some research in the past about this fragile stage of the life cycle of this animal, thanks to which we know that they build a nest in April, they start incubating April, May. Well, they have the nestlings, and most of the nestlings have fledged by July. Their diet consists on small mammals. We have birds, amphibians, reptiles. All right. We also know that on average, these species would yield 2 fledglings per nest, at least per year. They have like a quite good success rate. Not many nests fail, at least in Pennsylvania, and the nests that we have been able to study. There you have those 2 nestlings at the nest. But what about the breeding home ranges? We have no idea, or at least we had no idea. It is curious how conspicuous this species is during migration. It is curious how many people do know that this species exists. And it is curious how many people identify this bird in the field. But as curious as this is, we don't know anything about the breeding home ranges, which again have a lot to do with habitat management, species protection, conservation policies, and in the end, to give us these outreach talks, no? So it was a very important issue to tackle. That's what we thought. And well, here is when I come as a character of this film. I was a spring 2022 conservation science trainee at Hawk Mountain. These are my friends of that year. And apart from helping Hawk Mountain with their migration count, which we do, we were given the choice to collaborate in any of their programs of research or conservation. And in my case, I was lucky enough to have this bird with me. And in the end, in 2023, being able to publish this paper in the Journal of Field Ornithology. I will depict Simon and Garfunkel here because part of the title of the paper is a song by them. I will then say why. Homeward Bound is the song, and then I will say why we entitled this research this way. But first, let me introduce you to 2 wonderful, brilliant, very clever women that are in charge of this project, which was created in 2014. Actually, they created this project to gain more knowledge on the biology, migration, reproductive status, and conservation of this species. Those are Laurie Goodrich and Rebecca McKay, both at Hawk Mountain. And well, they have this Facebook page, which I invite all of you to visit. They are publishing news every week. So last one was from the 15th of September. And they are publishing like live updates on the different birds that they have GPS marked. So if you have the chance to get there, I really invite you to have a look. So what is the methodology that we used, that they also used to track these birds, and in the end to address this question, what are the breeding home ranges of these broadwings? First of all, we had to look for the nests. Those are pictures of myself and also Becca's. traveling through the forest and trying to look for these nests. I know that in this talk there will be lots of people who have helped Hog Mountain in one way or another, looking for nests. I can recall it is a very difficult thing. As a trainee, I came back home frustrated. Lots of the days, didn't know if the nests that I was looking to were actually active nests, red-tailed hawk nests, or Broadway nests. There were lots of failures, and in the end, well, there you go. There was a prize from time to time, and we saw the adults incubating or taking care of their nestlings, and that was like a very happy thing to find. But as I said, it's a very difficult thing. They are quite elusive. They don't show their territories, and you have to look for them quite closely and with care. After we discover the nests, what we do is what we call nest monitoring, which is just checking the nests, the active nests, every week, every 10 days to assess the status. So, for example, this nest of the left probably was a failure or broke for any reason, thunderstorm, whatever, whereas the one at the right is still active, no? With that in mind, we could analyze and calculate the age of fledglings, when our activities could be done or not. This picture on the left depicts the adult with one of the nestlings. It's quite big. So after some days, we could consider this nest as successful, and apparently with a productivity of one nestling per that nest. But then, why did we do all this? So when the nestlings had 2 weeks, more or less, 2 weeks, when they were 2 weeks old, we started doing a very exciting thing. You will find it quite funny. We wanted to capture the adults. And how did we do that? First, we installed these mist nets. That you can see Lori, Becca, and Pauli, an Argentinian conservation science trainee. They are arranging the mist net. I don't know if you are familiarized with this. Mist nets are practically invisible. You can see there, just birds dive upon them without knowing they will get trapped. So that was placed near the nest, near the active nest of the broadwing. And then we have the next stage was to install a decoy. So a decoy is like a fake bird that we were installing to promote some response on the adult broadwings. In this case, it was a great horned owl, which is known to be a predator of their nestlings and also a competitor for their nesting spaces. This is Rebecca. She is installing all the device. The mist net would be at the right, or where Becca is. And there is the tree of the nest. So we were waiting to hopefully have the broadwing diving into that decoy great horned owl and then getting trapped. Of course, we had playbacks of this great horned owl to make it look more real. It is a mechanical great horned owl made by a taxidermized individual. I mean, at some point, it does its job. The reality is that we only did the one attempt of capture while I was a spring conservation trainee, and we couldn't trap any. But since I know that this is that this has worked other times, I wanted to mention it at least. So once the animals were trapped, every individual was placed a US Geological Survey aluminum leg band and also a color leg band for the individual identification. This is like an ID. As you can see there, A8, we know that this bird has a name. So from a distance, one with binoculars can actually know who it is. Then we identified, sexed the individuals by their behavior, by their size, and so on. And last of all, we installed the satellite transmitters to their bodies to give us information on GPS location data. These transmitters, you can see there, they weigh less than 10 grams. They are solar powered, and of course they agree with all the regulations because they weigh less than 3% of the weight of this species. As you can see in the pictures of the right, this is David Barber and Laurie installing this GPS. The method of installing it is like a back harness pack. Saying it in a few easy words is like when you are at school and you just put your backpack on you, and that thing that you see on the Broadway on the top, that small red thing, that is kind of attached to the quill to avoid the bird to injure itself. You can see there in the picture of the bottom, the yellow GPS. The only thing that just goes out of the body is this antenna. And this is giving us information, very valuable information on location data. So now, once we have the bird with the GPS transmitter on it, we would follow the bird all throughout its annual cycle. This is eastern US. This is, if I'm not remember badly, this is a bird called Rosalie, in honor of Rosalie H., the founder of Oak Mountain Sanctuary. And here you have the data of these location points. You have there the 3rd of April, 9th of April, and in the end, you have the 14th of April, it goes to Pennsylvania, and there in Pennsylvania, it starts making those territorial movements. What is a territorial movement? Well, when the movement is not directional at all, but it rather stays in an area. It's like a star, a big star. So at that point, we were considering that the bird was already having a territorial behavior, and thus we could start calculating the areas that it was occupying. Particularly, we were interested in 2 different areas that you have in different colors here. One is what is called the home range, which is this 95%. What does this 95 mean? 95% means the area that encompasses 95% of the location points of the animal. Or saying it in other words, it is the area where the animal stays for 95% of the time, at least theoretically. Whereas the core area is the same, but with the 50% of the time. Those measurements are very important for conservation. We did this for all the birds that were showing territorial behavior, reproductive cycle, and also all this data was then compared to field data of observations of our own collaborators that, for example, said, okay, on the 14th of April, 2018, we saw this bird incubating. Okay, then we confirmed that we could actually count this data as breeding home range. So now about the results. First thing that we discovered was a very obvious one, but not for being obvious is unnecessary. And this is what we found. Females have smaller home ranges than males. Say it in other words, males have a breeding home range that is more than 20 times larger. This happens with many other raptors. I will explain you now why. You have there so 2.77 is the average, plus minus indicates the standard deviation. The N is what is indicating how many individuals we had for each case. So 18 females, 4 males. Spoiler alert, we are now, this is out of the paper, but we are now actually analyzing new data from Canada, from some birds in Canada. We see that this is also occurring in Canada. We have only females, and look at the home ranges, pretty small. So, having said this, why? There is a theoretical approach to this thing. You know that raptors in general show what is called a reverse sexual size dimorphism. It is called reverse because in many animals, the males are larger than the females, whereas in raptors, this is not the case for most of them. Exceptions could include the Andean condor in South America or other species, even the vultures, some of them have not these differences. But many other raptors, if you think about it, the female is larger than the male. And why is this? Well, this is obviously linked to the division of labors at nest when they are during the reproductive season. Females are normally, generally, in charge of incubating the eggs, brooding, shading, feeding the nestlings. And also in most species, they are the ones who defend the nests, with some females even being more territorial than males. This is something that is becoming more clear with new studies coming out. It is important to note that evolution is not something that comes linear with a purpose, but if you see these two boxes, the blue and the green, you will think that females are larger because, evolution is favoring those females that are larger to defend their nests or to more efficiently incubate the eggs, whereas males that have to hunt and thus have to be more agile have to be smaller. In the end, this all makes sense. And this is linked to the fact that we recently discovered that the breeding areas of females will be smaller because they are more attached to the nest. As you see, all the activities that the female performs, at least during the first weeks of the breeding cycle, are attached to the nest, while the male is in charge mostly of going out of the nest to find food. These three ideas are interacting between them. You can see there a bald eagle. The one at the bottom right is the Chaco eagle. In that species, the endangered Chaco eagle that Phil already introduced you, is the species that I studied. The female is incubating for 90% of the time. So you can imagine the differences in the home ranges of the males and females. Hope that this was more or less understandable. If not, I can go back to this diapo, to this slide later. And now I will give another thing that was quite interesting about this study. The nature of our study made that lots of nests were in very different ecoregions. Here I will start telling you how is this, like the different characteristics of each ecoregion. The stars are telling us the places where there are nests. There you can see that there were 22 broadwing hawk nesting attempts monitored. This doesn't mean that there were 22 different nests. This is like a spoiler of what I will tell you later. 16 of them were successful, 2 failed, and 4 were unknown. Because of this, we couldn't perform any analysis on how the breeding home ranges would be affected by the fact that they were successful or not, because we had very little examples of failure, for example. No. So now, looking at this map, I'm going through all of the ecoregions to explain a bit of this. So the first one, the southernmost ecoregion, is the Central Appalachian broadleaf forest. This is what is more likely to find, for example, in Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, characterized by a mixed deciduous forest. Then we have eastern hemlock, which is this Chuga canadiensis. We have white pine, Pinus strobus. Well, thing is, there are few wetlands and a relatively low prey availability, as stated by literature. We had 5 nesting attempts there, all of them in Pennsylvania. We then have the Laurentian mixed forest, which is like a transition. You see that brown area, transition between hardwoods, pines, also in Pennsylvania, in our case, with more availability of wetlands and thus a bit more of prey availability. We had 7 nesting attempts there. I'm going from south to north, just now we don't have the map with us, and I'm going from the southernmost to the northernmost. Then we have these examples in Connecticut of the eastern broadleaf forest, which is, again, going into a forest that is little and little resembling more the evergreens, with more availability of wetlands, and thus a higher prey availability for the broadwing. And the last one, which is the New Hampshire birds, which is just very, very similar to boreal forest, is the northernmost ecoregion, and probably it has the most availability of wetlands of all these ecoregions, and thus the highest prey diversity and availability. All these that I told you that may be a bit boring, at least for the moment, makes sense here. I will give you a couple of seconds to understand this graph. So in the y-axis, you have the breeding home ranges of the birds in square kilometers. If you are not familiarized with the box plots, with these whiskers and these things that very statistical and mathematical, I will tell you just to focus on the thick, dark black lines of each group. So you have the Central Appalachian broadleaf forest on the left, Laurentian mixed forest, Eastern broadleaf forest, and the Adirondack New England. So as you see, as we go north, breeding home ranges decrease. Or I will tell you this in other words. If we increase plant diversity, landscape heterogeneity, and wetlands, it is likely that the broadwing will have more prey availability and diversity. And in this context, it will need less space to occupy. I will give you a few seconds, so this is a bit twisted, but you can imagine that if you live in a town and there is only one supermarket far away, you have to go lots of times there, you have to go far. But if you live just in a town with 3 supermarkets at the end of your square, you won't have to travel a lot. So this is what happens with the broadwings. Apparently, in the New Hampshire area, they are needing less space because they have more prey availability. This enhanced prey availability may be mediated by the increased habitat heterogeneity, as I was telling. And again, a spoiler alert, Canada. And we have that this reasoning is, again, confirmed by the Canada birds, at least. We will have to do more in-depth analysis, but it seems to be like a rule. There is something very interesting about the ecoregions here that still has to be confirmed with microhabitat analysis, like not broad range analysis, but people ensuring that the prey availability is as we see it. And now, having said that, I will go to one of the most exciting discoveries, for me at least. I know that for most of you, it could be also something that you were expecting. Some of you may be experts in broadwing hawk monitoring or whatever, and you see that some broadwings are repeating their nests year by year. But this hadn't been proved by science. So these are 4 birds. These are 4 females that we had. These 4 females repeated their nesting seasons in consecutive years. We have there 15, 16, the other 16, 17. Okay. They had 2-3 repetitions, depending on the bird. We performed the breeding home rates of each of those birds and compared with that of the last year. And as you can see in this figure, there is a huge overlap on the nesting areas. We have values from 89% to 94%. That is a lot. I mean, saying it in a very simple words, that is a lot. Even more, nests of consecutive years were separated by an average of less than 200 meters. Or even if you concentrate on the figure on the one on the bottom right, the nest is the same, actually, in both years. So I don't know for you, but for me it was quite surprising that we have a bird that migrates 8,000 kilometers and back 8,000 kilometers, stays like 9 months out of home, and when it comes back, it is repeating the same nesting area and site. So now, this is when this comes more sensible, no? These birds are homeward bound. I don't know how they do it, how they don't get lost. I mean, it's incredible how these animals are able to recognize the area, remember, and even remember not only the nest, but the area surrounding. That's incredible. And to give an example of a male, this is Harris from New Hampshire, which also repeated the area. We could expect that males being more wandering and occupying larger areas, they could be like less attached to the area, but not. In the end, it's the same. We have a 91% overlap in the breeding seasons of 2021 and 2022. Then, of course, we will have to think about the reasons why in 2022 this male was like enlarging the area. Probably something happened, the prey availability diminished by some reason, or anything that we haven't studied. And this is another bird. Again, spoiler alert, this is from Canada, Catherine. There you have how is this? Georgian Bay. I think I'm saying it right. This is south of Gravenhurst, and there you go. 2023, 2024, again, breeding home ranges. This one is beautiful. I mean, this one, they nearly overlap by 100%. That's a lot, at least visually. So why is this important? This has strong conservation implications. If one can think of a state conservation policy, these species are very easy to protect. If you know the area where it breeds, it is very easy to protect that area. There are other species for which you don't know where they are going to be from one year to another. If you know that this species has a strong nest site fidelity, then it will be much more easier to protect. And in the context of habitat fragmentation that is occurring in the US, and I know that probably in the northeastern part of the US, it is not the place where the rate of forest fragmentation is the most, but still we have to take this in mind. If a broadwing hawk is nesting in this area, for example, and they just rip off all the trees, then it is going to be a problem. We haven't measured what happens if a broadwing decides not to repeat the area. One can imagine that it will be more difficult for it to breed successfully. So now, let's come back to, I don't know how much is time. Yeah, I think I'm okay. Let's come again to this beautiful map. And now, breeding season, future results, sorry. What is it to do after this? Well, from Hawk Mountain, we are they are already tracking Canada birds. You can see the names there and the places. Transborder efforts, international conservation efforts can be made for these species now that we know that they occupy two different countries. Even though I can imagine that Charlotte at some point will move to the United States part. It's not far from there. And there is another thing that probably you have heard in another talk by Becca, probably last year, about the post-breeding migratory season. This before migrating, some of these birds stay in some places for a while. We don't know why. We don't know for how much. And the surprising thing is that one could imagine that after breeding, the birds will go as the arrows are indicating, so south or southwest. But no, they are not going southwest. They are going northwest. So after breeding, some birds are even going more north than they should. We don't know why, but they are doing that. If I show you this map, this is, I think, this is Catherine. No, this is Q home, actually, CU home. 3 consecutive years. These are points that probably for you make no sense, but what if I tell you that the nest of the 3 years is located 188 kilometers southwest from here? So after breeding, this bird has come to this place. Why? We don't know. But there seems to be a post-breeding area that has something in particular for this bird that is appealing and that it makes it worth for CU home to go to travel nearly 200 kilometers in the wrong direction, as we would think. So wrapping up a bit, something that I always tell in the talks, in every outreach talk, is that the help of citizens, of locals, is imperative to carry out any study that on birds or on any wildlife species. So again, if you have sightings to report to Hawk Mountain, possible territories, nests, proposals for conservation from your states, you are more than welcome to write to Lori, to Becca, to Hawk Mountain, and collaborate with them. Also, just the last mention to this app that Hawk Mountain Sanctuary has, which is Bird Tracker, where you can follow the birds live. It's very funny. You can choose the bird you want and just see where it is. I don't know. I find it very, very entertaining. And there is a website, Hawk Mountain Bird Tracker. And well, now I just have to thank all the people that have been involved in this research. Most of them probably I don't know personally, but I think it is worth acknowledging the people who, by donations, by support, by help, by field work, are helping with this project. Thanks to all of you. Thanks, private donors. Thank you, Phil, Julie, Harry Center, Larry Fisher, Charlotte England, Malcolm Wilson, Hawk Migration Association of North America. Sorry if I'm probably forgetting some names. And there is a picture, yes, probably depicting most of you that have collaborated here. And yeah, and that was all. Last slide for my colleagues at Hawk Mountain when I was a spring conservation trainee. A great group of people, great group of researchers. I hope to see them all again soon. And yeah, here you have the thank you slide. On the one hand, you have the Adopt a Broadwing program. You can just go to the QR and see more of this program. And if you want to know something that we do here, down here in Argentina, you can go to the QR at the right with the endangered chuckling. And that was all. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Diego. That was a beautiful presentation. Lots of amazing photos. All your work with the maps, of course, and even some excellent videos in there demonstrating how broadwings move. Yeah, just such fascinating results that you were able to generate from looking at all these data. I know I have a ton of questions. We've had a couple come in. But yeah, since you have a little bit of time now, I was going to jump in and start asking you about just how some of this came together. First of all, I need to know, how did you get that amazing photo of the nestlings looking down into the nest of a broadwing hawk? For somebody who is on the ground most of the time scanning up, I would love that view once in a while.
You mean which picture?
Oh, much earlier on, there was a nestling photo showing a couple of, I think they were white fluffy nestlings, and it looked like the nest
Ah,
below them. So I don't know where that one came from, but
well, that one is probably from Lori and Becca. Sometimes I didn't say that they have tried installing camera traps at some nests. They have even taken a fledgling for banding. Also, I didn't say that. So probably when they were at that moment, they were able to take that picture themselves. I do that with the Chaco, so you can imagine it's the same.
yeah. So I know you didn't take that photo, but you had a chance to do some nest monitoring the summer that
Yeah,
you were spending around
yeah.
Hawk Mountain, and yeah, I'm just curious what some of your takeaways were from being on the ground with the species, watching them. For somebody who had never seen them before, what was it like interacting with that species, which has become your PhD work?
You mean with the Broadway? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, for just for everybody, I would say do not get too frustrated. We think that we are going to find the species on the first day. People hearing me here, probably Becca or Lori, would be laughing now because I was, I don't know, uh, 20 days out in the field, and probably I only saw the Broadway hog 5 times, 6 times, but those times are a price. I mean, sometimes it is good to hear. They are so elusive that they don't want you to see them. So it is good to have this acute sense of hearing for this unique call that they have. And then after that, you can start tracing them back to the nest if you are lucky enough. If not, well, you can go on searching. I will also propose something that we were talking with Becca. During winter, most of these forests are without leaves. So structures such as these nests can be found more easily. Of course, if these animals are repeating nests year by year, if you GPS locate those nests when they are easier to locate, then maybe you are lucky enough to see the birds at the nest. But I mean, it's a very difficult job. It is very important to tell all the people in their backyards to focus, to try to listen, to see the birds because you alone you cannot do it. At least is what I what I learned.
I must agree with you after being a birder all of my life, never seeing a broad-winged hawk nest before I started my involvement with this project, and now been lucky enough to see them in a lot of different places, following them year after year. And yeah, like you said, it takes patience and just listening in to all the different cues. Um, Several folks on the call were able to share that they also had interactions with broad-winged hawks. Both Kay and Gavin had seen broad-winged hawks, and that's the reason they're at this presentation, maybe. So they're a species where a lot of people can engage with in a very populated area, at least in the eastern forests, and then all the way through, into the northern part of South America. Ironically, you're in part of the Americas that does not have any. It's for
Yes.
somebody who's working with the species, it's somewhat ironic.
Yeah.
But uh, another question that I'll ask is, I'm just curious, did you do all of the analysis with the maps? Was that something that you spent many hours over the computer screen and doing the GIS work, looking at the movement data?
Yeah, that was Becca and I doing most of the statistical part. Becca and I knew each other in a course in Virginia in 2019. We met for the first time doing movement data analysis. So we didn't use GIS at all. It was by the program R, but yeah, we were doing that on our own. The two of us. We had several questions. We had a bunch of birds, and we wanted to see if those questions could be addressed. And since I was enthusiastic about movement ecology, because it's also my PhD project with the Chaco eagle, we agreed that we were carrying out this research, and in the end, it has been a success, at least in knowing new things about the species. Because this is the first time that we have calculated the home ranges using GPS data. There are some studies back in the 1980s that they were calculating these breeding areas, but using data on sightings, which you don't know how accurate they can be. Now, with this in mind, we only have to grow the number of birds, sites to study, repeated years. There are like lots of questions that could come up to our minds and be very interesting.
Great. Well, relatedly on that topic of the movement data, I was very interested in looking at the slide that you had for Harris, the bird that we had discovered and named after the Harris Center, in fact, several years back. I had been monitoring that territory since 2021, I believe, when a volunteer found the nest. I went back after not finding the bird last year. Don't know if it nested, but this year we did find within 200 meters of Harris's old nest, we found a bird, and I determined it was a male that was not Harris. It was not banded, did not have a color tag or a band. So, it seems like another individual male moved in on the territory, maybe after Harris died, or who knows, maybe was pushed out. Just so curious, why so close to that old nest? It seems like there must be some habitat factors that really relates to that being the core area for at least a pair. Maybe it was the female that had the same female that had influence as to the nest selection. Just
Well,
curious what your thoughts are.
yeah, that's a very interesting question, Phil. I would love to go deeper into that testimony because it happens with raptors worldwide that, as surprising as it can be, they are lacking nesting sites. So there is like a scarcity of nesting places. We have here in Argentina an example with the Chaco eagle. Sometimes it is sharing the nests with other eagles of the area. Uh, and sometimes you think, hey, you have more trees to do that. But there is something that we do not understand that is happening to these birds, and it's bad. It's very bad because this is telling us that probably these birds have no other option than to install themselves in that same nest or within those 200 meters. Something to think about. Another possibility is, as you said, probably the female of Harris. If Harris went out, died, or was pushed out, maybe the female is the territorial one and has chosen a new male, and the new male is installing himself there. Again, years will tell us how this answer is directed, but very, very interesting testimony, this one.
Yeah, well, thank you for your thoughts on that. Let's see, a comment from Susan came in about broadwings frequenting her yard the past couple of weeks, discovering the large chipmunk population. Yeah, something I certainly noticed, and it looks like, remembering back to your slide there, that mammalian diet is probably more than 1/3. Is it 38% or something like that? So, so I guess not surprising. That seems like a suitable food source for broadwinged hawks.
Yeah, and in the Appalachian area, or at least in the Hawk Mountain, they were wondering, Laurie and Becca, if the scarcity of chipmunks would drive the broadwings out, or at least make their home range is bigger, because this all comes with all the problems that we are facing on climate change, urbanization. So it's all a pyramid of different factors that are just pushing one to another, and very difficult to analyze in the long term. But well, that's what we are working for, at least, or to try.
Great. Well, we look forward to continued involvement with the Broadwing Talk project, Harris Center, and I'm sure other partners too. My last question comes from Eduardo, which he was asking about the results of breeding between a dark morph and a light morph Broadwing hawk. If you happen to know anything about the genetics there, and I guess what that individual would look like, maybe.
Well, that's a very good question. Unfortunately, I have no answer for that. No, I don't know if any of the people who are here may, because I never saw this. So that's a good question, actually.
Yep. Yeah.
Makes me think of people working with morphs. There is an Argentinian guy who was collaborating with Hawk Mountain, Matthias Juhant, who is an expert here in South America with the morphs of the raptors. So maybe if I can tell Eduardo to call him about that, Matthias Juhant. But I don't know if he will have an answer to this.
Okay. Thank you for the response. And since it's 1 o'clock, I'm going to turn it over back to Julie. And thank you again, Diego.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, again, Diego, that was fantastic. And I have so many more questions about Broadwings. It makes me want to study them more. So fascinated by their post-breeding dispersal, especially in what we're learning. So all the more reason to keep this great research up so we can learn more about their movements.
Thank you.
Thank you for adding this last slide. I wanted to let people know that our next Lunch and Learn next month will be October 16th. And we're going to be hearing from wildlife biologist Jim Watson, who's going to be speaking about ferruginous hawks. And that's a species we don't typically hear a lot about, not widely monitored on migration, but he's going to be talking about their movements and migrations. I'll be creating an event for that shortly, so stay tuned for registering about that event. We are up to date on all our Lunch and Learn recordings on our website. If you've missed any, you can go to HMANA.org and watch any of those past recordings. Last month was about saw-whet owls. You can go and check that out. I'll also mention that we are having a 50th anniversary conference the end of this year, November 7th through the 10th in Duluth, Minnesota. And our early bird registration has been extended just a few more days until September 22nd. If you're thinking about joining us, it's a great time to be in Duluth. Lots of interesting raptors migrating late season, golden eagles and rough-legged hawks, and it's going to be a celebration. And we do also have a virtual option if you're not able to make it to Duluth. Saturday, November 9th, you can join us all day on Zoom, and that's just $65, and that's going to include the whole day program, symposium on winter raptors, lots of presentations, panel discussion on the future of hawk watching, and ending with Ernesto Ruelas, who's going to be talking about 30 years of raptor migration in the neotropics. So you can find out more about our conference at HMANA.org and check out the program lineup, all the great field trips we'll be offering. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us as usual for our monthly Lunch and Learns. We love engaging with you. And thank you for supporting HMANA and the Harris Center here today. And we hope to see you again next month.